I think, that really drove us into that final stage of pure carnivorism was the Ice Age. The initiation of the Ice Age is around 2.5 million years ago or so. We came into an Ice Age, which we're still actually a part of. And these ice sheets came down, they killed off the plants, they killed off the animals that ate the plants and weren't able to survive during the ice times. And really only these big megafauna and big fuzzy, full furry mammals like mastodons, giant sloths and things like that were able to survive during this period. And then the carnivores and predators that were preying on them, our ancestors being among them. So evolutionarily, as I mentioned, about 8 million years ago, we broke off from other primates because we started eating meat, started eating more meat and more meat, and started having these genetic and physical adaptations, these phenotypical adaptations that we see in the fossil record. We started becoming more upright. We started becoming taller. We started having smaller and smaller teeth, smaller jaws, bigger brains. And we started using tools because we had to figure out how to take down animals that outclassed us by every physical metric, like a mastodon or even a deer. There aren't many people that can, wrestle down a deer and beat it to death with their hands. Maybe they exist, but these things are very big, strong, powerful animals with antlers. And so we had to figure something out. We had to figure out how to take them down. And that's where tools and tactics come in. The pound stones go back millions and millions of years. The first worked stone tool came in at around 3.3 million years ago. And those developed and became more sophisticated as the eons go on and go by. And these were used to kill and dismember animals, and they got more and more sophisticated. And that's something that Dr. Bill Schindler spoke about in his talks and in his book Eat Like Human, and he had a great talk at KetoCon as well. It's just a shame that that wasn't recorded, but you can find his material on YouTube as well, and I'll be having him on the show soon also. So what happened, I think, that really drove us into that final stage of pure carnivorism was the Ice Age, or the initiation of the Ice Age is around 2.5 million years ago or so. Before that, there really wasn't these ice caps, these polar ice caps. Those didn't exist further back than about 2.5 million years ago. Then we came into an ice age, which we're still actually a part of. And these ice sheets came down, they killed off the plants, they killed off the animals that ate the plants and weren't able to survive during the ice times. And really only these big megafauna and big fuzzy, full furry mammals like mastodons, giant sloths and things like that were able to survive during this period. And then the carnivores and predators that were preying on them, our ancestors being among them, or at least adapted enough to survive during that time because we were eating meat and because we were eating these animals and became basically reliant on pure animal nutrition because there weren't the plants available. So our ancestors that went down that line and just went whole hog on the whole meat train, those are the ones that survived. And those are the ones that turned into modern day humans because of that evolutionary drive and necessity for animal source nutrition. We can also look at this from the fossil record and something called the stable isotope study. So stable nitrogen studies, they can find this in the bones of any animal, and you can see what that animal ate. And if it builds up throughout the food chain. So animals that just eat plants, they will get a certain amount of this stable nitrogen. And then animals that eat that animal, they'll have a concentration of that nitrogen and so on. So as you go up the food chain, you get up to the top, like a fish that eats algae. There's a fish that eats that fish, a fish that eats that fish, and so on up the chain till you get to sharks and orca whales and things like that. And so you can see that these are top of the food chain apex predators. And we actually see that our ancestors and early humans and even early Homo sapiens and Neanderthal were apex predators. They had a higher carnivore rating than even lions, foxes, hyenas around at the same time in the same location. Okay, so this is because our ancestors were eating the lions and hyenas and foxes and wolves as well. We have done this, looked at the done stable isotope analysis of the ancient Egyptians. So not everyone knows this, but there are actually more, it's thought to be that there are more mummies in Egypt than there are people currently alive in Egypt. This is because these were just the burial practices of ancient Egypt. It wasn't just the pharaohs and the wealthy that were mummified. Certainly, they're the only ones buried with a fortune in gold and trinkets, but everyone was buried this way. And so they looked at the stable isotope study, and they found that that during the agricultural revolution, post-agricultural revolution, that they were actually heavily eating grains, and this actually affected their health. We can look at these and we actually see atherosclerotic plaques in their hearts. And this was first thought to be that the pharaohs and wealthy were the ones eating all of this, eating all the rich food, and they could afford meat and fat. And so obviously they were getting fatty arteries because they were eating fatty meat. But that actually isn't the case. When you look at the stable isotope studies, we find that the normal peasant class were eating the same amount or the same kind of food as the upper class, just probably maybe not as much access. So if there was a famine or something like that, they're the ones that are going to starve first. However, they were still eating the same thing, and you can even see from their statuary that this is not actually the peak of human health here. This is the statue of a man who has clear gynecomastia and a pot belly. Okay, so that already is showing this dysregulation of health and hormonal health in the population just eating grains. So they had the original grains that they may have had treated and fermented or sprouted or done different things than they do now to get a more less harmful product, and it was still causing all of these problems. So even then, without processed sugar and refined sweets and junk food, they were still getting sick, and they were still getting unwell and gynecomastia and obesity as well. Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor at Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys. So evolutionarily, again, we look at different studies that are just all over the map. There was a major study that was done out of the University of Tel Aviv in Israel from Professor Mickey Ben-Dor, who I will be interviewing next week, actually. This showed that humans have been hypercarnivorous, apex predators for at least 2 million years. So again, apex predators, top of the food chain. This is what that stable isotope study shows, that we actually were top of the food chain. Apex predators don't graze. I've never seen a great white shark eat kelp for roughage. I've never seen a lion eat grass for the same reasons. This is not what apex predators do. This is not what top of the food chain animals do. They eat animals. They eat the animals below them on the food chain. And this is what the Israeli study showed as well from Mickey Ben-Dor, that not only with the stable isotope study, but by many different metrics, we show that humans have been carnivores, apex predators, hunters, not hunter-gatherers, hunters for at least 2 million years. And that coincides with the advent of these ice ages. And people say that, well, when the ice ages came down, well, people were still eating plants. They still had to do this. And you point out that, like, well, during the ice ages, there really weren't any fruits or vegetables available to people. And, because it's ice. And they argue, well, no, people just moved towards the equator when that happened. That's actually completely false. That is nowhere argued in any of the scientific literature. And in fact, it's very clear from the fossil record that as the ice shelves were moving down, people were moving up. Okay, probably because this is where their preferred prey was, which is like the mastodons and megafauna. So we can also look at the fossil record and look at what happened after the agricultural revolution. Paleoanthropologists can actually look at a fossil and a skull and teeth and actually tell you if a human skull was before or after the agricultural revolution. The teeth and jaws will only develop properly with proper nutrition. And so crooked teeth, small jaws, micrognathia, those are all a product of malnutrition. So not getting enough of the appropriate nutrients that we need will make it impossible for our bodies to develop properly. There are other things as well, mouth breathing, sucking your thumb, and using bottles and all that sort of stuff. They can actually change how your mouth develops. Chewing on actual food, this stimulates the development of your jaw as well. But looking at this just from a nutritional standpoint, you do need specific nutrients like vitamin K2, K1, calcium, vitamin D, and so on in order to make straight teeth. And this is published widely in dentistry journals today, that this is a phenomenon, that this is not a genetic issue. Crooked teeth are not a genetic problem. They are a nutritional problem. This is from not getting the proper nutrients. So when we look at the fossil record before the agricultural revolution, we actually see very wide jaws with straight teeth. All of their wisdom teeth are in, and comfortably so. Their jaws are big and straight and wide and pronounced. They're not these short, truncated, crowded jaws with crowded teeth. Why is it that now we like almost no one gets their wisdom teeth in, whereas a couple hundred years ago, most people did if they were getting proper nutrition? People say, "Oh, well, we're evolving away from that." I'm sorry, but it takes way longer to evolve than just a couple hundred years or even a couple generations, because just a generation or two ago, not getting your wisdom teeth in was actually less common than it is now, far less common than it is now. Now we look at height in the fossil record. Actually, people in prehistoric era were actually taller, and they had larger brain sizes. So the average brain size of Homo sapiens was 11% larger before the agricultural revolution than it is now. Neanderthal brains were actually larger than that, going back like 50,000 years. This is likely because, even before the agricultural revolution, maybe people did start having to be, add into the gathering part of the hunter-gatherers, because they weren't able to get sufficient nutrition and sufficient fat and calories from the animals that they were eating, because the megafauna was going extinct, and we had to look at other sources of nutrition potentially to help mitigate this. So before that, our brains were actually bigger, and people were actually taller. And there are areas where people were known to have been hunting mammoths, and we can date these and say like, okay, well, these guys were mammoth hunters, and we can see this by other metrics as well to show that that's what they were eating. And they found that some of these populations were on average 6'2" or even 6'4", and that's on average. The average height of an adult male in America is 5'8". In China, Mongolia, and elsewhere, it's like 5'6", somewhere it's 5'4". That's very, very short, and that's the average. So half the population would be below that as well. Not so in the areas that had an abundance of meat to eat, like these big mastodon hunters, and on average about 6'2" or more. And so a lot of these people were much taller than that as well. The different tribes in Africa where they just eat meat, on average, these guys are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". The average height of a population denotes the average health of a population. And while you may have, geographical, differences in population, and sort of, like you have the pygmies in Africa, they're at full height. Those guys are not that tall. However, you do have different populations, like in Asia. We have people that went through the forced famines of Mao Zedong and the other communist famines. Obviously, had stunted growth, and you have all these elderly Chinese people that are very short, and then they come over to America and they have kids who are 6'4", because this is a nutritional issue. This is not just a genetic issue. And we look at brain size as well. Okay, so this is a chart of our brains growing, going back 10 million years, and it's slowly creeping up, slowly creeping up, slowly creeping up. And then you see it around 2.5 million years, all of a sudden this spike up. And that's because during that slow rise, we're eating more meat and more fat, and we were growing our brain because we're figuring out, how to get better quality food. We're starting to figure out tools. And all of a sudden, when we're basically forced to go full carnivore because we don't have any other options with the ice ages, our brain development skyrockets, and it has this exponential growth right up until the end there, where you can see right there at the end, it all of a sudden has a sharp decline downwards. Okay, you cannot argue that is a genetic change. Like that is something that happened in the environment. Like the genes don't happen that fast, so it's nearly a straight line when you look at it, in proportion at that small area, and then almost direct line downwards. Okay, so that is a sharp decline. And so something happened there. Something happened that it was not good for us. And if you actually look at that coincides with the advent of agriculture and plant-based nutrition becoming more prevalent. Not even as dominant as it is now, just more prevalent. Okay, before that we were carnivores. We were living as carnivores. Then we add in plants on a wide scale, bam, our brain size goes down. That's not good, right? So, that is a very clear piece of evidence that this is not the way we should be eating.